Deputy Owen Murphy, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. When Oppenheimer saw the results of his first test of the atomic bomb that he helped to create, he said the words, "I have become death, the destroyer of worlds." And he was quoting a Hindu text called the Bhagavad Gita. And it cuts directly, I think, to much of what we're speaking here today and why we're here to discuss this important issue. Every year on the 6th of August, a small group of people gather by a cherry tree in Merrion Square Park. The tree was planted in 1980 to commemorate the victims of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. And it was planted by the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament here in Ireland. And I'd like to recognise the good works of David Hutchinson Edgar of the CND here in Ireland and all that they have done to date in keeping this issue to the fore. I was honoured to speak at this event when I was a councillor a few years ago, and I've attended it since as a TD. It's not a very large group. It's generally the same people coming year after year, and the age profile is generally a bit older than me. The ambassador from Japan attends as an invited guest. The ambassadors from the nuclear weapon states are invited, though none have attended while I have been there. One would think, given the numbers of people and given the relative age profile, and given how quietly this event goes off, generally speaking, for the rest of the country, that we are commemorating an event very much in the past. We are, but no one would think from that commemoration that this was still a problem that very much confronted us today. I shouldn't be interested in this. And I say that for two reasons. I shouldn't be interested in this because really it shouldn't be a problem anymore. Both the threat of the potential use of nuclear weapons and also the problems that their existence still causes. Older, wiser, and more experienced people than me should have solved this problem by now. But I shouldn't be interested in this issue either, in the sense that it's not really on the agenda anymore. That it's not really considered as other important issues are. And no one's really taking an active interest, apart from the die-hard people, and they are there, and they are very good, and they are very committed. But it is a dangerous thing that this isn't to the fore in our debates and discussions, as it could be, because as this recedes in history, as it recedes from our memories and the collective subconscious, the actual threat becomes more real and more dangerous. My interest is accidental. I went to study conflict resolution and ended up studying weapons proliferation, and I was fascinated by it. I was fascinated because I saw how this particular weapon had shaped international history and how it continued to shape international relations. But I was also fascinated by the important role that Ireland had always played in the sphere, and I knew nothing about that until I came to study it. And so I stayed with it, and after university, I worked in this area for 4 years of my adult working life before I became a politician. And I was fortunate to have time at the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva and to work for the Preparatory Commission for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization in Vienna. And I was very interested always in how visionary we were as a country, how bold and ambitious. In the world of nuclear weapon disarmament, in the formation and implementation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is the cornerstone of our non-proliferation and disarmament efforts and the regime, we were the world leaders, we were visionaries. The treaty began with us. It began with Frank Aiken in the 1950s and his very real and very prescient concerns that these weapons would one day disseminate to terrorists. And it continued in the 1990s when, again, as visionaries and leaders, we formed the New Agenda Coalition. And in the conference to review the NPT, the review conference in 2000, we had agreed the 13 practical steps for nuclear weapon disarmament. We can't say that about too many major international issues, that we have been and continue to be world leaders and that we were visionaries. My thanks to the Taoiseach and to the whips for agreeing to this debate today and to giving it time to discuss this matter. It is something I had sought with the whip, and he immediately recognised the importance, and that's why we are discussing it today. And it is important because some of the key tensions in the world at the moment concern either the threat of nuclear weapon proliferation or the continued existence of these weapons, the failure to achieve the nuclear disarmament objectives that we all sought when we opened the NPT for signature in the 1960s. And whether we look at the Cold War tensions that are resurfacing in Europe because of proposed missile shields and proposed new missiles, whether we look at the growing isolation of Iran and tensions in the Middle East, the rush to war in Iraq and now its aftermath, the North Korean regime and its breaking of almost all of the last taboos in relation to nuclear weapons, including the one on testing, as it attempts to ape some of its neighbours and its perceived rivals. We see the dangers posed by the possession of nuclear weapons by unstable governments. We're not too sure which government may take over in the future and how that might lead to increased tensions, and we see possible arms racing on the subcontinent. And that's just now, though. It is wholly separate from the huge damage and the problems that the existence of these weapons have caused for human life since they were first invented. And we can think of the people on the Polynesian islands who were displaced and who were affected by the testing back in the 50s and later on. We can think about the victims, of course, of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We can think about the victims of the Rainbow Warrior. And we can think about the victims in North Korea today, people who are dying of hunger because that regime decides to spend so much money on trying to achieve a weapon which it almost certainly could never use. We have a good reputation here, as many deputies today have outlined in the discussion. It is, a reputation we hold historically as a country, and it is only right that the Dáil consider these matters so that our strong record and independent voice maintains, and that we're all given an opportunity to contribute to this most important of debates, and I do welcome all contributions. We must recognise that as parliamentarians, we have a different role to play to that of the government. And this is true in all modern democracies, which is why we have the Interparliamentary Union between countries for parliamentarians and elected officials to promote particular issues separate to their own governments. And we have the PNND, as has been mentioned already, which promotes this particular issue. I was very heartened to hear the Taoiseach respond so positively recently to the International Joint Parliamentary Statement for a Middle East free from nuclear weapons and all the other weapons of mass destruction. And I would like to recognise all the good work that our diplomats are doing in this sphere and have done, particularly in relation to the NPT Review Conference in 2010 and our work around the area of securing a nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East. In this regard, our work is incredibly important, and our efforts here in the Dáil and in the government are very much aligned. We begin now the process of preparing for the review conference of the NPT in 2015, and the first preparatory committee meeting was held recently at the end of April. And there is so much that needs to be done. If you listen just to the contributions that we've had today, the different areas that people have focused on themselves and what they think is important in this debate, there's a huge range of things that must be addressed. But if we are to expect the non-proliferation pillar of the NPT to remain standing and to remain robust, then we must work on that other key pillar, and that is the disarmament pillar. We still have the capacity to destroy all human life on this planet many times over, and if we do not progress our pursuit of disarmament and achieve greater reductions in nuclear arsenals, then that truth, that threat, will not change. We risk new countries entering the nuclear club. We risk existing members advancing their arsenals rather than reducing them. And so we must bring disarmament center stage if we're to have a chance of making progress with countries like Iran and North Korea, if we're ever to hope that those outside the treaty who possess nuclear weapons will sign up to the disarmament principles in the NPT. Ireland, as part of the New Agenda Coalition, helped negotiate the 13 practical steps in 2000. The very first of those steps, practical steps to disarmament, was a commitment to bring into force the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. By banning testing of nuclear weapons, possible new entrants are kept from becoming nuclear powers, and existing members cannot introduce new weapons into their arsenals. A ban on testing means no new nuclear weapon states and no new nuclear weapons in people's arsenals. If we're to get rid of these weapons, if we're to destroy them and have they no longer exist, then the first place to start is with a ban on testing. Thank you. We have started on this path, and we have started well. The Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty has been signed by 183 countries. Its verification system of 337 stations around the globe is in place, ensuring compliance with the treaty's provisions. There's a headquarters in Vienna, where I worked, where its Executive Secretary, Tibor Toth, and his team are tirelessly working in the pursuit of the treaty's goals. Good people are working hard to further this issue for the betterment of us all, and our government is working with them, and it's important to recognize that. Except for North Korea, no country in the world has tested or exploded a nuclear device for 14 years. The norm against nuclear weapon testing is established. It is robust, but regrettably it is not yet in force. As part of the complicated ratification procedure so that the treaty can come into force, there still remains 8 states that must ratify this treaty for it to become international law. And they are China, Egypt, North Korea, India, Iran, Israel, Pakistan, and the United States. Entry into the force of the CTBT is the next logical step in the nuclear disarmament race. It is the next practical step, and it is also the next possible step. Let us be visionaries again. Let us take a singular goal as we face 2015 and work towards that. In the same way that 1995 in the review of the treaty is remembered for the indefinite extension of the treaty, and in the same way that 2000 is remembered for the 13 practical steps for nuclear disarmament, let 2015 be remembered for achieving the CTBT, and let Ireland be remembered with it. To others, that might sound too ambitious. To others, it won't be ambitious enough. But I say we can do it, so at least let us try. And all we can do is try. And if we fail, then we fail no matter. We'll try again, we'll fail again, and we'll fail better. But it behoves us, given our history in this area, given the great responsibility we take on the world stage when it comes to achieving nuclear disarmament, that we take this singular goal and we work towards it. And just as I conclude, Chair, tomorrow we'll see the official opening of Ireland's National Data Centre. The Taoiseach referred to this. It's happening in the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies. The national data centres around the world form part of the global alarm system that the CTBTO has been building around the world. And for us, and opening the National Data Centre, it basically confirms and reaffirms our commitment to being a part of this very important verification regime. And it's very welcome. We are a part of the system. We always have been. But now it is time to really start to shape it again. Thank you.